and you'll see where I'm going with this. What I learned is that an image that is unique can trigger a ton of information in the brain. Hey, welcome back to Uncivilized Rebirth. Here is a place that I hope you find a voice of reason and rationale and helpful advice and tools to help you on your healing journey. Not everybody has been raised in a home that's just detrimental. There are a lot of super blessed people that were raised in homes with loving mothers and loving fathers and siblings that loved them, and their family dynamics were amazing. They were validated, they were loved, they were cared for, they were nurtured and raised well. And these people turn into amazing adults in the world that are just solid and steadfast. And then you have another side where children are born into families that don't want them. They're treated horribly. The mother and father are terrible examples. Their watchwords are, do as I say, not as I do. And that's very confusing for a child. And that was something of my past, where my mother would say, and laugh about it on the phone with her friend, she'd say, do as I say, not as I do. Well, my parents, like many other parents, were horrible examples to raise a child. That's because they were given terrible examples of how to be a person. So you have these kids that grow up and then they don't know how to validate other people. They aren't solid. They aren't a complete person per se because there's something huge lacking in their childhood, and it was guidance. It was love. It was compassion. It was just the one soul raising another soul to be a great person in the world. And when we get to that point in our life where we realize, like, man, I was raised really wrong, and now I have to fix it all. Well, the last video talked about how to reprogram or reformat the memories and to store them properly. That way the memories from our childhood become empowering and they become basically rocket fuel to propel us into the future. And they become this amazing chapter in our book. And the programming that's in those memories gets changed as well. It's just a powerful tool, so I'd suggest you go back and watch that one. It's the video before this one, if I'm not mistaken. Now, in this video, I want to talk about finding an example. Like, once we decide that we want to change and we want to be better than the way we were raised, a lot of times we don't realize at a deep, deep level, the only resources we're pulling from is from what we saw as a child growing up. And like for me, it was just atrocious, the examples that were set. And I will give them grace because they have no clue about this. They have no clue about how they were a bad example. And they don't know anything about the programming of the mind or the subconscious or how it plays out into adulthood. And they take no responsibility for how they erred in raising children. All that aside, that's a whole different chapter in the book. So it's like, how do we set an example? Like, what's the plan there? Like, who do we choose to follow? How do we choose to act? And then how do we set up a program or a system that we do this consistently so it becomes our new character reel or it gets programmed into our brain? Because we can fall back into our old behaviors easier, but how do we stay steadfast on the path that we want to be on? About a year and a half ago, I did a deep dive, and it didn't take, I don't know, it wasn't like a 10-year deep dive, but for me it's a deep dive, into symbolism and symbology. And you'll see where I'm going with this. What I learned is that an image that is unique can trigger a ton of information in the brain. And I've used this example before. When you see the McDonald's arches, you don't all of a sudden think of every individual thing that you learned about McDonald's. There's this knowing about all of it that automatically populates. It could be a feeling of going to a birthday party when you're a kid, or the smell of McDonald's if you like it, or Ronald McDonald, or they've served millions of people, or you see them all over the place, or this huge arch that's just way up in the air that you see from a distance away at an exit. Well, all that information populates at once. And that's the power of a symbol. So if you take that power and you transfer it to your own life of, how do I choose to set an example for myself in a way that I want to conduct myself all the time so I don't fall back into these old patterns and routines? A symbol is so powerful because this is the process that I used, and I would like to encourage you to do this on top of reformatting the memories. Sit down and draw a symbol that is unique and very simple, and it's new to you, something that you've never seen before. It doesn't have to be cool or awesome. It just needs to be a new symbol to put in your brain. And then you simply write down on a sheet of paper everything that you want to be and all the ways you want to conduct yourself and how you want to identify. And this could be listed under, I want to be a gentleman. I want to talk this way. I want to act this way. I want to think this way. This is my future. This is how I'm going to conduct myself. Just a whole smattering about your character, basically. And I call it a character sheet. And when you first create this symbol and write out a character sheet, it's the first time your brain has ever seen that symbol. And so if you read that character sheet you write out with that symbol, your brain starts associating that symbol with the character sheet. So then whenever you look at that symbol, you can think about that character that you want to be and all the ways that character is embodied or presents in the world. And I suggest you go into great visualization detail where you imagine what that character looks like, and you imagine the character in different situations. You imagine that character being the highest version that you possibly can imagine. There's no limits on your imagination. And the higher and the more regal you build this character, the higher you'll put them on a pedestal, and you'll start to look to this character for how you conduct yourself. And every time you think of that symbol, everything about that character populates. So the more you look at the symbol, the more you read your character sheet, the more you think and visualize about this character, you're intertwining all the information about that character and your symbol together. So every time you think about that symbol, everything about that character populates. So then when you step into a situation where you would have acted differently in the past, think about that simple symbol, and all the information populates automatically about the character you're creating. And then once that happens, you actively choose to conduct yourself in the manner in which that character would conduct themselves. So now you're taking the example that your parents set and you're wadding it up and you're throwing it in the trash can because that's where it belongs. Their example was poopy-doo. Now you have set this example of a figure that cannot be tampered with or err in any way, shape, and form. Because the figure you've created in your mind is not human. It's above human standards. So you take all these humans that you pick in the world that are like, oh man, I'm going to follow them. Oh man, I'm going to follow them. And David Goggins said this best. He said, every single person you look up to will fail you, no matter what. And that's the truth. They will all fail you. And even my role models that are like, yes, I finally found one. Well, you pick apart their character long enough and you're like, oh man. But we got to hold grace for everybody because nobody's perfect. But when we're looking for an example, we seek perfection. So when we build out this character in our mind and it's associated with this new symbol that we're looking at, And you can write it on the mirror in your bathroom, write it on a piece of paper, just have it everywhere. So you start having this character populate all the time of like, how does this character conduct themselves? So check this out. So let's say you have this old neural pathway that goes to this point, and it says, when you're confronted with this situation, you act this way, and it shoots off that way. And it creates a response, which activates a process in your mind that activates, like, say, speech or breath or words or anything like that, because the brain is highly programmable. Here's what happens is you get to this point where it's like, here's the stimuli. Let's say it's somebody saying something very triggering to you. And then usually it goes to here and it activates, and you act in this way. And then people are like, well, look, see, he still acts like that. See, he still does this. That's a neural pathway. Check this out. Now let's say it's going along, and here's the point where that trigger happens, where somebody's an a-hole to you, or your family member is an a-hole to you. And they know it'll trigger this response they've programmed into you as a little child. So then they can step back and like, see, he doesn't change. Well, anyway, they're just assholes. So you get to this point where the trigger happens. And usually that energy goes down that neural pathway to here, where it's like bad programming. Now, when it happens to the trigger, you think about that symbol, and there's a new little neuron over here that's waiting for this connection. And this neuron here, or whatever it's called, is the new action of nobility. And it gets here, then it's like, wait a second. You think about that symbol, how that character is going to act is so hard, you want to do this? Boop. Here, it connects to a new pathway of I'm going to act in a noble manner. I am no longer going to act in this way. And the reason it's so hard to do that is because there's energy traveling down a neural pathway in your brain that's been like created and then reiterated over and over. But now you're purposely creating a new pathway to create a new response to those triggers. So then when people purposely step into your life again, you're like, I'm going to trigger this. You're like, wait a second. What the crap? Well, you took power of your mind. And side note here, when you're doing this work and you're realizing at a deep level, you're creating these new pathways to connect to new ways to conduct yourself in the world. You need to be eating a lot of leafy greens. You need to have a lot of vitamin B plus, a vitamin B complex, which has thiamine in it. Thiamine, which is a great building block for the nerve coatings and stuff in your brain. And you need to take the supplements that will support brain growth and brain health, because what you're doing is you're giving instructions for your brain to create new pathways, and it needs those building blocks to easier create those pathways. So let's say you step up to a situation and your brain's like, all right, time to create a new pathway. We need the building blocks. No building blocks, not happening. It goes down the old pathway. So you need good brain fuel, healthy fats. You need to feed your body well for it to get the building blocks. So it's like if you have this construction dude that has all these instructions that are amazing instructions, then it's like time to build the building, and there is no material. You literally can't build. That's what's going on in your brain. If you don't have the material to build with, you can't start reprogramming your brain to have new neural pathways, to have new actions in your life. Anyway, this stuff is so cool, and I can't wait for one day that people actually listen to me. You know, it's like, I'm not trying to be like, I knew all this stuff, but like, I figured stuff out. Like, I started studying and learning. I'm like, wow, like, there's so much power here. So, to sum up, to create an archetype or an example that is infallible, create a symbol that's simple, and then write out a character sheet. Everything about the highest version of yourself. The sky is the limit, and nobility is the target. Once you create this structure in your mind, it's infallible, and only you are looking to it. Nobody else on earth can cause an error in that role model that you have created in your mind. And when you look to that role model on how to conduct yourself, you're going to create new, basically, patterns in your brain that change the way you present in the world. There's a lot more to this too, and I'm going to get into that in the next video. If you like this, please hit the like button. Not really hit it, but either like tap your screen or use your mouse to click it. If you hit it, that might not result in good stuff. Anyway, that's my attempt at humor. If you didn't like this video, please leave a comment. Maybe I need to change the way I'm presenting the content, and I'll respond in a gentlemanly manner. And honestly, I would like to sum up with this also. Like, I've had to change from the person that I was because I had been raised in just a terrible, pathetic manner. And I had this facade of being a soldier, but then underneath that was just this self-serving person at that point in time. And I had to change for the mission that I'm on. So anyway, like and subscribe if you like this content. And if you, I don't know anybody else teaching this stuff, but I know for a fact it works. Like it really does, because I've done it to myself, and it's fantastic. I'm going to end the video now. Roadhouse, spiritual hard.